Hello everyone. Yesterday I was rewatching Castlevania Nocturne, and honestly, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's got good action, it's got good character moments. I think that the weapons are pretty well established for each of the characters. I do think that for Maria, the summoner with like the bird and the tiger, and she also had a turtle in season 1, I think that she actually lost a lot of her characterization for season 2 with regards to her, magic and the stuff like that. Like, she lost a lot of detail there. The birds kind of just, became colorless, and the tiger kind of lost the lightning powers that it seemed to have, and she also stopped using the turtle. And she did get a dragon. She did get a dragon, which was cool. But, the other stuff was also neat, so why lose that, right? But overall, I think that the show was good. Unfortunately, there's a very big problem that Castlevania Nocturne has. And that problem is, well, for lack of a better term, it's racism. Castlevania Nocturne is an extremely racist show. And not just racist, it's ignorant. Now, when I say it's racist and ignorant, I specifically refer to the many times throughout the show where the writers go out of their way to place whites as inherently worse than everyone else. Almost every vampire in the show is white, with the exception of Drolta, who is an Egyptian woman, and yet her skin tone is sub-Saharan. Which, weird. And then she gets attacked in her temple. This is season 2 stuff, but, whatever. She gets attacked in her temple by bandits who happen to be white in Egypt. But she and all of the other people in her congregation are dark-skinned. So this is weird, right? Like, if you're saying that Egyptian people are dark-skinned, which they're not, ask an Egyptian. But then the bandits of the area are white-skinned, and they are Egyptian bandits because they have the clothing and the weapons of, people of that area, but they're lighter-skinned than the others, and they might have been vampires, and so their skin tone would have been a little clearer, but from my understanding, the vampires came later. Regardless, that's a minute part of it. Throughout the show, there's a very clear-cut effort to place all of the historical events, especially the bad ones, at the feet of Europeans. For example, vampires being introduced to the Americas. Olrox, an Aztec of all people, claims that the people of the Americas were unused to vampires, even though the Aztecs themselves had multiple vampire legends long before the Spanish came and tore down their slave empire. Because that's what it was. It was a slave empire. Olrox never mentions this, but yeah, Olrox was a slave owner. And probably not the type of slave owner you're thinking of. He wasn't just some guy who sat at a big house and allowed slaves to exist. No, he was a man who dealt, and this is purely off the back of him being an Aztec, right? He was a man who lived surrounded by slaves who he considered not even human. Slaves that were currency. Slaves that were human sacrifices. They would carve these people up and use their organs for ritual sacrifices. But, again, not that big of a deal by itself. There were a lot of race swaps, from Olrox being turned from well, we don't really know what race Olrox was originally, but he did exist in the castle of Dracula, which itself, I guess, teleports all over the place, but fair enough, right? It's not an issue. Annette, though, Annette was white. And they changed that for a Caribbean character so that they could have her connect to the new world as well. I don't I don't feel like it was necessary. I see why they did it. I don't think it was necessary. But as I'm mentioning all of these things, you're probably noticing how I'm mentioning all sorts of mythologies. And I have yet to mention the really big one, the really important one, the one that is endemic to the culture of, you know, the zone where this takes place. France, revolutionary France. France. Christianity is barely mentioned throughout the entire show. In fact, it's only mentioned by one character, the priest, who is a corrupt necromancer. I say necromancer, he's a forge master. Necromancer. The only... Oh, wait, no, we also have Mizrak, who is a Knight Hospitaller, or a Knight of St. John. And he falls in love with Olrox, the Aztec vampire. So you have two Christians in the show. Two Christians. Two. One is a corrupt necromancer, and the other one does things with a vampire. Falls in love with a vampire. Right? Why? What was the point? The show is awesome, right? It's got good combat scenes, it's got good character moments, it's got good dialogue, it's very colorful, all of these things, amazing, right? But on almost every episode, there's a really shitty moment where the show reminds you that it was written by American dipshits. And I really think that is to its detriment. And, I mean, I don't just think that. Almost everybody who reacted to this show when this came out was extremely repulsed by this behavior, because it was especially strong in Season 1. In Season 1, almost every time somebody spoke, it was to blame Richter, the, you know, white male protagonist, of something that he did or did not do. Or to bite back at him. Or even when Annette is introduced, she saves Richter's life. Richter is, you know, immediately on guard because two new people showed up, one of whom is a powerful magician, and he asks, "Who are you people?" First thing that comes out of a character's mouth is to call him ungrateful. I'm sorry, these people could very much be here to take you away to do some ungodly ritual, because, you know, one of them is a mage. You do not know these people. Richter is fully in his right to question, who are you people? Right? But no, let's act like he's the dickhead. Throughout the show, this is a consistent thing. Thankfully, in Season 2, Annette becomes much less confrontational as well. She is very confrontational throughout the first season, and in situations where it doesn't even make sense to be confrontational. But throughout Season 2, I think that they actually looked at how people were reacting to what they had written, and they went, okay, we're actually doing a little bit too much with Annette, so let's tone it down a little. And from there, they moved forward, and they made all of the main characters extremely likable. And even Olrox, they took a character who is throughout the games, and, you know, additional media surrounding the games, represented as a character that is very curious. In fact, the only reason he wants to be a part of the entire situation is because he's curious as to whether or not he can control chaos, which is Dracula's power of soul domination. Yes, primordial chaos, like the thing that destroys everything. That's what's inside Dracula. That's his power. Never mentioned. Right? This is Castlevania, and the only thing that it has anything to do with Castlevania is the fact that some of the characters have the names of Castlevania characters. I do think that this show would have been better off not including any of that if they wanted to do all these race swaps and all these changes and all this stuff, but hey, sure, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Not every single Castlevania game includes Dracula. Dracula is just kind of important to the setting. But overall, yeah, the show's good, but it has this problem. and I don't see why it was necessary. I don't see why the show needed to have so much of this hateful sentiment that is almost endemic to the type of people who wrote it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this. I like the show. It's a good watch if you want to just, turn off your brain and see some vampire action. If you actually are going to pay attention to what's being said, yeah, research the shit that they're saying, because everything is wrong. Like, vampires were brought to the Americas by white people. No, they weren't. They weren't. They were there already. They had those legends already. The Aztecs especially. In fact, a lot of Aztec gods drank blood. Maybe their gods were all vampires. I feel like that would have been much more interesting of a take, like the European vampires came and they wanted to take it from the Aztec vampires, and they turned our livestock against it. I feel like it could have been much more interesting if the vampires were portrayed not as just like us humans, but human in their own right, if that makes sense, right? He's a vampire. Humans are food. Of course, he's not going to see them as that much different from the way we see cattle. But if somebody came around and turned all of the cows against us, we'd probably hold a grudge. That's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, have a good one. Cheers.